First attack.
Sangria Protocol. I am Keitan, a Poppy's game developer slash VTuber. And we are going to be, it's our usual Wednesday game dev stream. Yeah, I was doing some interesting work over on Sunday and Tuesday. Once again, it's still not quite at a situation where I can really show off what it can do just yet. I still have a couple of things to fix with it first. I might be able to like throw together a partial demonstration of it, but not necessarily. And also I'd rather just like have it fully operational first. But it is mostly more stuff to do with the level generation stuff, the procedural room generation things. Big part of what I was doing with it before was obviously trying to figure out how the game is going to decide where rooms are placed, what rooms are placed, what those rooms are going to be, what they house, etc. But the last couple of big dev sessions, I've done more stuff to figure out how those rooms are going to render, how they're actually going to be displayed in the world and designed. Because of the fact that even though a lot of the rooms are going to be technically static layouts, as in, like, there's specific room shapes that can be placed on the map that have different purposes. But even though they'll have specific layouts, I want to be able to quickly kind of prototype them together without having to do a whole lot of like modeling specifically for it. And so that's kind of part of the reason why I'm writing these algorithms. And B, I do still want to have a system where certain entryways of a room can be extended in order to connect up with other rooms should I find the opportunity for it. Because obviously a very interesting design for it would be that there are multiple paths throughout the floor to get to different places. And I'm going to be working in all sorts of other like rules within the system. I'm actually planning on possibly having the system parallel generate 3 different layouts, and it's going to compare the 3 layouts and choose whichever is the most interesting. What's the most interesting? Well, one of the things would obviously be how many paths are possible to get, like how many distinct paths are possible to get to the boss arena, or the elite boss arena. And then various other things. Obviously the big one is just the ability to have multiple paths and have it not be linear. The most non-linear layout is probably going to be the most interesting layout. As well as a bunch of other interesting things I want to be able to do. I think having diagonal walls that are close to each other are pretty cool. That's like one of the things I wanted to be able to do. Another thing is just like how many separate kind of like side paths. Because like multiple routes to the boss arena is good. I also want there to be multiple dead ends, potentially. I want there to be plenty of, like, additional paths that don't lead to a boss.
Mic on. Mic off.
Hit my headphone mic. Sorry for the mic on jump scare. Those are the kinds of things I'm trying to work on with the level gen and the tile system. However, as far as the room rendering goes, there's obviously going to be some parts of rooms, because the rooms are supposed to be static layouts that I define, that are like pre-defined, pre-authored is the word I'm looking for. There will be room layouts that are pre-authored. However, and then like parts of those pre-authored room layouts can have dedicated models for those sections. If I want to have like a spot where it like kind of dips down into like a little bit of like a generator area, or it's, some sort of pit, or maybe there's a raised area. Like I wanted to do a sound stage, because obviously this is supposed to be a idol corporation, so there's got to be like a sound stage in there somewhere. Stuff like that can be their own models that can then like in and of itself have its own collision generated, as well as its own geometry. But for a lot of the other parts of the layouts, as well as the parts of the layouts that are dynamically extended to make more interesting floor layouts, is I need to be able to dynamically generate the level geometry for those areas. As such, I was working on a shader as well as some experimentation with Unity's Mesh API. I don't know if anybody's actually around in the chat right now who usually cares, but I am in the yapping state anyways. But basically, whenever Unity is drawing something in 3D on screen, it has two components usually. There is, and this is a bad example because it's a pro builder mesh. But if we look at the capsule obviously has a mesh render and then a mesh filter with a mesh object. And this mesh object actually doesn't have to be an asset. Like, currently, it's pointing towards an asset. Come on. There we go. Currently, it's pointing towards an asset, except it's not actually finding it because this is like a core Unity asset, is this capsule. Especially if I clicked on this target dummy, I could probably do it. Yeah, if I click on this, here it is. Here's the mesh asset for that. It's in the target dummy file. But, funnily enough, this doesn't need to be a asset reference. It can, in fact, be generated at runtime using what Unity calls the Mesh API. You can create a mesh and then assign vertices to it, assign triangles to it, and Unity will kind of just auto-upload those to the GPU, auto-instance them properly. You can also tell it to kind of optimize it before it's sent to the GPU, which we're definitely going to be doing, because we are going to be feeding it some interesting stuff. I showed some screenshots on Blue Sky, although I have gotten rid of the object from here, and I would have to recreate it, and I don't feel like recreating it right now. Because I created something just to kind of mess around with that API and to see how it works. And so, I actually have this shader up here, and this is a little bit more interesting. And yes, it's shader graph because I cannot be fucked to learn HLSL. You cannot force me to learn HLSL. I never will. Maybe I will someday, but not today, because this makes more sense to me. It's funny, I complain about node-based scripting languages all the fucking time. I'm always like, oh, I hate node-based scripting languages. But, like, in a shader graph, it just fucking makes sense to me. So I am noticing... Hang on. I forgot to plug that in, so I'm gonna plug that in because I forgot to do that. Alright. You're probably looking at a lot of these different balls and wondering, what the fuck is this shader supposed to do? My answer to that is yes. The actual answer is it's doing two things. Number one, depending on the value of is or boolean, this is going to actually sample the main texture, which, for example, we have like a floor material, right? Let me find the materials that are actually using this. Go to the materials level, office. It's got an office floor carpet material. There is a base texture to it. Out of curiosity. Yeah, because this is going to be fucked up because this is a plane. See, I can select a square. Okay, here we go. Or a cube. Slightly better on a cube, although I think it's still going to look funky on the shadows. Basically, there is a part of this code. So, the base texture is drawn based on world position. That's convenient because, you know, the plan is to have the level generation stuff be literally 1 meter grid squares. So it's all going to be aligned to the grid anyways. Therefore, instead of trying to use normal UV maps to designate where on the texture is supposed to be drawn, instead we use the world position, and then we use a switch to choose whether or not it's, you know, lateral or if it's vertical type deal. And that samples the base texture. And then on top of that, it is putting what's called an overlay shadow, or it's essentially a fake ambient occlusion, like a stylized fake ambient occlusion system that I have developed. If we actually look at the texture here, here's the texture. I wish I could zoom in for you, but this is the best I can do. So we've actually... Oh, this texture is not updated.
That's incoming.
Oh, Amy's back. Amy. Thank you, Fred Potts. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, I gotta update this, because I was supposed to add a, like, solid block to this. Where am I looking? Let's reuse this folder real quick. Oh, you know what? It would be in resources. I think I exported this. Textures. Yeah, there it is.
New intelligence has been submitted for your situation.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I do have to add that. I'm adding that. Been a minute since I've done some adjustments on this. Let's find where chat is. I think this is, yeah, this is chat. That's such a good clip. I mean, make sure you post a link to that clip so that people understand that that's a funny clip. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, I was updating this. I had to sneeze. Bleh. Not need create action, needs show and explore. Meow. No, you're cute. Okay, and then I need you copy paste with file destination. Wait, did I already? I did already have this folder open, didn't I? That's a waste. Oh well, that's fine. Let's not go that far. Yeah. Well, I'm going that far. Yeah, so I had to add that in. This is the solid block. Which, granted, there are a number of possibilities with the level gen that I have decided will never happen. Just partially as a stylistic choice, and partially just as like a compatibility choice. But there are like very specific exceptions to those rules, and that's what this block's actually covering. But basically, this is a tile map, and it's actually a tile map that the shader is actually sampling, and then it uses a crap ton of math that was really annoying to figure out, so I'm only kind of okay at math. In order to, essentially, it also uses world position to determine the sampling position of this, but it also does a little bit of a hack, because it's actually using the UV positions. Like, we've got a UV1 here, but there's actually a UV0 here. Both of these UV channels, the first UV channel is actually being used to select which of these it's actually using. So, for example, when I want to create a right edge, I actually make all of the vertices of the quad that is drawing this this square of carpet. Let's say I'm drawing a square of carpet. I'm in the house like carpet, and I want it to be shadowed on the right edge of it. So all four vertices of the carpet, of that tile of carpet, are going to have the same UV value. Normally a UV value is used to determine where on a texture map, on a specific texture, a quad should sample its color from. We're not doing that because instead we're using world position to determine where on the texture we should be sampling from. And then the UV is instead used to choose from this thing. So, for example, I'm trying to draw a right edge, so the UV for all 4 spots will actually be 2x and then 2y. Or if I want it to be a, an outer top left corner, I write 3x, 2y in all of those vertices. And you'll notice earlier I said, oh, second UV channel. Yeah, we're using a second UV channel. I think normally if you read a UV1 channel and there isn't a UV1 channel, I think it just like defaults to UV0. That's what it seems like it does normally. What's this channel for? Well, you'll notice there aren't any diagonals on here. And I've already declared that there's going to be diagonal walls in the builder. Well, I figured out a cheap hack of how to do that. Let me actually go pull up my screenshots. Let me pull up my ShareX screenshots. So again, I don't feel like having to recreate this because this required me to punch in all of the numbers myself, which I don't care to do again. But here's a screenshot. I shared this on Blue Sky as well, so if you've seen this on Blue Sky, then you know what I'm talking about. Look, there it is. I just fucking shear that bitch. I just shear it, and it works. That's how diagonal walls are going to be done. And how's that controlled? How do I control the shear? With UV1 channel. The UV1 channel, I specify in, I either have 1 in the X or I have 1 in the Y to tell Unity which value it should be using for the skew. Essentially, the way that it works is it's adding the opposite value. The opposite, just like X and Y, it'll add Y to the X, or it will add X to the Y. And that's what causes it to skew. That took me way too long to figure out, but I got it in the end and it looks cool. And it works well enough. I am still going to need to figure out, because I do not have a good reference of what values cause what and which tile I'm actually supposed to be using for each skew direction. But we'll figure it out eventually. The other thing that I was doing, let me actually make sure that's saved. The other thing that I was doing, which we are, again, not going to be working on today, because I want to work on something that's a little bit more interesting for stream, like, weapons for the loot pools, so that I can do more with the loot pools. What I was really working on, was I was starting to work on stuff for actually generating the room layouts. I have a floor decorator info scriptable object. The plan is to actually make it so that if I have any other behavior I want to do for how to draw a floor, how to generate a floor mesh, I can inherit from this object with a new object, as long as I make sure it's also got a create asset menu, because it is a scriptable object. And the idea is that within a room data, I can assign a default floor decorator. So any space that doesn't have a override floor decorator specified will use a default floor decorator. So for example, if I just have a big office area, I can make it so that the default floor decorator on that is carpet, and it'll generate carpet. The idea is actually that floor decorator info is going to be used for most of the wall, or most of the floors that use this shader, that use this AO and the the division stuff in order to draw in order to draw that, right? However, it is also a scriptable object, and that way I can assign a different floor material to different instances of this floor decorator. I also have the Boolean uses shadow map, so if I turn this Boolean off, then it will just greedy take as much blocks as it needs to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Efficient. Because obviously, the big thing is, right? Because we're doing this as like a tile map kind of thing, that means that, like, in theory, doing it like the lazy way would mean that you would get just a whole bunch of 1 meter tiles, which is not great for performance. Like, for example, if we have, you know, a 16 by 16 room, 16 meter by 16 meter room, and we just draw all of the tiles individually, make them all just their own squares. Doing that means that we're writing 512 triangles to the GPU. Even if we batched them all together into one mesh, so Unity's only doing one draw call, it's still 512 triangles to the GPU for no fucking reason. And that's just for the floor. Then we gotta do the walls and anything else that needs to be generated. And that's for a 16 by 16 space. And a lot of the rooms are going to be bigger than 16 by 16, actually. I think even just like this example encounter, this is small for an encounter. I actually do probably need larger rooms for encounters. Just because, like, this is like just small enough for these three guys. For me to fight these three guys. And this is how many squares are we looking at? We turned the Unity grid on and the fly is back. There's been a fly that's been attacking me all day. There's nothing on my desk. I cleaned my desk. It's still fucking bothering me. It goes away for like 15 minutes and then it comes back and flies directly on my face. I hate it. Anyways, yeah, I think this is 10 meters, right? So that means this is 18 meters. Which is funny, it's almost exactly the 16 that I was talking about earlier. I think, like, easily minimum size for, like, a standard encounter in this game is probably, like, 24 by 24. Could probably get away with, like, maybe 20 by 20. Maybe. Maybe not. Yeah, this is like 18 by 18 right here. So, like, I think 24 by 24 is probably, like, minimum size for an encounter room. Which probably means that, like, minimum size for a supply room, or a supply room is probably actually going to be somewhere in the middle of storage room and this. Storage room will probably be like minimum size 12 meters. But fuck off. But I do want a mix of small just treasure room, or like just like closet of supplies storage rooms, and also larger rooms that are storage rooms, are treated as storage rooms, but are still capable of housing enemy encounters so that enemies can patrol through those rooms. That's kind of an important thing that I want to be able to do with that. So, what else? And then I think, like, supply rooms, which are like the shops essentially, should probably be a little bit somewhere in between. possibly even like kind of just this size is probably exactly the size I want for a supply room. That gives like decent space for us to have, 3 vendors and then the target dummy somewhere in a specific corner, etc. An elite boss arena is probably like minimum 32 by 32. We want a lot of space for a elite boss arena. And also the idea is obviously not all the rooms are going to be, just squares or rectangles. I want there to be more interesting layouts. That's exactly why I'm working in the ability to have diagonal walls, because that's another way for me to kind of introduce additional shapes that could be used in room layouts. So like half of what I was doing yesterday and Sunday was working on the code behind a lot of that, and then the other half of what I was doing is really just diving into all the different like bits of logic that need to happen with level generation, tile placements, and stuff like that. That all really helped. Like being able to kind of, one of the other things that actually really helped a lot, is it's gonna be weird. You're gonna be like, Katon, why are you booting up Minecraft? Katon, why are you booting up Minecraft? I thought today was a dev stream. It is a dev stream, and I'm doing something dev stream related. Trust me on this one. This is BT7274 saying trust me. This was actually vital to yesterday's development, for me to zero in on exactly what kind of logic I needed to generate level geometry stuff. It's Neoforge, so it takes 9 fucking years. But there's a good reason that it's the Cackerelcraft instance too, because we have Copycats Plus. Copycats Plus has the vertical slope, which is good for showing what a vertical wall or a diagonal wall will look like in the game. That probably tips my hand on what I was doing exactly, but ignore the fact that I'm probably going to load up in front of a slicer because I was reporting a bug on the slicer to the guy who does that mod. But if I go find, I think it was actually here. There's been a lot of this. I think there was another area in which I was doing a lot of this. Might not have even been on this instance. There was another spot, I think. Damn it. And the fly attacks my face again. Aha, there it is. Here we go. Here we go. This is where I was trying to figure out every single possible combination of different tiles and their orientations in relation to each other. And not only did this help me figure out like what kind of layouts look good, because like for example, I could build up these andesite casing blocks to simulate what the wall would look like, and then I was like, oh, this is, this one tile passageway here, even though it's diagonal and so it's not quite 1 meter gaps, it still looks bad. Therefore, I shouldn't do it. And that's why I was putting these stopped black concretes there. That's like my indicator that whatever I am displaying there is illegal. It is not valid. So like, this is illegal. I don't want to do a room that does that. Even though the diagonals are like slightly better, I still decided that this still looked bad. So we'll never see like 2 border blocks. The andesite casing essentially stands for the border tiles. Specifically, actually, also there is fucker. That fly's gonna be bothering me all fucking stream, isn't it? I'm sick of that. As I was saying, the copper casings actually stand for diagonal borders, which are slightly different from normal borders in that I can't place a wall tile on it, but I can place I don't have. Give me that. I could have been able to find that. Whatever. But I can place a diagonal wall on it, and that actually looks fine. The whole idea behind the borders is that, like, this is legal, where there's a wall and then a 1 meter space into another room. That's legal. That makes a lot of sense for a level layout, and also makes sense for, like, a building layout. You don't normally see, like, 15-meter thick walls for no reason. So that makes sense. And similarly, because of that, if I have, you know, a copper casing there, that means that I can potentially put a diagonal wall there. That's kind of the idea behind that. Let me replace this so that I don't confuse myself in the future. Okay. And yeah, just, like, going through every single, like, iteration possible for how tiles could be laid out, deciding which of these layouts are non-valid, and deciding which ones I'm going to have to figure out as I go along, and, you know, things that I need to make exceptions for. For example, earlier I was like, oh, I can't have a wall tile that is diagonal to exactly to borders and adjacent to none, until I realized doors exist. Rooms kind of need to have doors. And so I realized that that is actually a situation in which a wall tile should be bordered by 0, or adjacent to 0 borders, but diagonal to 2. But I've also figured that, like, it cannot be diagonal to more than 2 in any other situation. Or more than 1, actually, in any other situation. There is a situation in which a wall tile can be diagonal to exactly 1 border tile, which is, if it's in outer corner, like this, right? Assuming, you know, we have, like, floors here, that's diagonal to 1 border and adjacent to none. And the reason that what that does is there's a border tile right there. That's how that works. Actually, the thing is, a wall tile should not be diagonal to 1 border, because this shouldn't be in the layout. What should be in the layout here is a floor. At that point, it's like, you know, floor, it's diagonal to 1 border, therefore it should be an outer corner. Essentially, if I actually take this copycat slice, or the copycat bite panel, which is also, again, a useful tool that I had for determining what the shadows would look like. So, like, the shadow for this area would look like this. So, like, there'd be an edge shadow here, there'd be edge shadow here, and then this is an outer corner. That's how that would look. Having that was really useful for figuring out how I wanted floor tiles, or how I wanted the tile system to behave. And that helped me with figuring out exactly how floors would actually be generated. And so, like, that gave me the idea of doing a system where, depending on the number of adjacents and the number of diagonals to a certain position, then it will do various bits of logic. So if it's a floor, it does like the floor checks, which is entirely based on diagonals. Floors should not be adjacent to borders. If it is, in fact, there's the error here. Floors should not be adjacent to borders, only walls can. Trying to treat this floor as a wall instead. It should not, keyword, should not be adjacent to borders. Partially because tiles do need to be explicitly marked as walls in the layout to make collision detection simple on the tile map solver. Because the idea is supposed to be that, like, at each of the spaces where there could be a door, the game needs to go, hey, there's like 15 different rooms that I could probably put here. And then it needs to go through each of those rooms and make sure that there's actually space to place that room. And also, it needs to do like that, like, a bajillion times. Stinger Park all places doing. I just sipped water.
Head pats incoming.
But I sip another water. Yeah. Thank you, pets. And it also needs to do that, like, a quadrillion more times, because not only can the entrance... Not only can the entrance be positioned anywhere arbitrarily within a entryway space, the entryway can then be placed anywhere arbitrarily on the resulting room's entryway space. So that's part of the reason why I need to make this as optimized as possible, so that that can be done very quickly. To be able to do all of the entropy calculations as fast as possible. You're going to hear me talk about entropy in terms of level design, and that is part of wave function collapse. Wave function collapse, I was saying it as a buzzword previously, but now I have definitely read up on it and made sure I actually understand what wave function collapse means. And, well, wave function collapse is essentially you have a bunch of different things that can be a series of possibilities. And the purpose of a wave function collapse algorithm is to find a configuration of each of those possibilities that makes sense. And the way that that works is that for every, like, item, or I believe there's terminologies to it. Like, for every, like, wave function that is open that doesn't have a choice locked in, it needs to calculate how many choices there are over, like, the actual probability of those choices. This is called entropy. Entropy in and of itself is the concept of something being very random, hard to predict, and wave function collapse algorithms are based on finding whatever outcome or possibility has the lowest amount of entropy. Or entropy. I think it's entropy. Meaning that it's like a little bit more certain what that option could be, and then going for that first. It is prioritizing whatever has the lowest entropy, and if everything has the same entropy, then it's just going to, flip as many coins as it needs to figure out one of them randomly. That's how it works. Now, In order to tell a wave function collapse algorithm what kind of entropy each of our doorways has, well, first of all, there's actually like several doorways per slot. We place a spawn room, and let's say that spawn room has 3 entryways. We end up like saving one of those slots for an elevator, so that the player like enters the level on that elevator, and then like the other 3 sides of it will be entryways. That actually means that there's going to be like, let's say this is our entryway here, or our spawn room. I keep calling the spawn room the entryway room in the system. I had to kind of, or in the documentation, I'll have to kind of narrow down what's actually, which one it's called. But for example, if this were a spawn room, then this tile through this tile would be entryway points. And so just at this side alone, that means that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different spaces to consider rooms at. And then from there, we have however many rooms that we want to consider for that spot, which I might try and simplify things. Previously, I said that I wanted to be able to rotate rooms, but I think I might actually make it so that rooms only have like a specific set of rotations that it can do, so that I don't rotate a room and it ends up looking weird compared to how it looks when I spawn that room in its natural orientation. Because this is like a fixed perspective game. You're usually looking, you know, south to north type deal. So I might want to kind of author my layouts with that kind of concept. For example, I would want to avoid putting things on walls that face away from the camera, because that'll look weird. As it stands, it's like your camera will be positioned here, and then it'll be just be something floating there. That would look weird. So I would want to be able to specify, like, hey, we should only be placing things on like this wall or this wall, type deal. Therefore, we don't have to consider rotating, but those rooms could, in and of themselves, have a entryway that has 8 tiles themselves. That means that for each of these tiles, let's say we're just thinking of choosing one room, and that means that for each of these tiles, that one room can be in any of 8 positions, which means that we have a total of 64 possible outcomes that we need to choose from. Granted, each outcome only has 8, but it is still 64 outcomes it needs to figure out in the end. And that's just for one side. And then we also add up all of the other sides. Now, granted, the idea is, as soon as we decide to put a room here, most of these entryway tiles will then decide that their only possibility is null, because it now has a wall in front of it. We can simplify that check as much as we can down. It'd be like, you know, as soon as we place a room and link it up with the door, we can then loop through all of the connected entryway tiles. And then if that entryway tile is now being blocked by a boundary, then we just nix that option entirely from our entropy calculations. And that is why I need the tile map system to be as fast and robust as possible. So we ain't using any of Unity's built-in shit. We're not using somebody else's built-in shit, or pre-built shit. We're not using anything that's, like, optimized for actually drawing tiles. Instead, we're using just arrays, structs, and, like, indexed arrays. That's it. That's everything. That's the system. As well as, like, a couple of static methods that just define, like, hey, can I place a floor tile where there's currently a border tile? The game goes, no, because you can't. And then that's a function that's used for several things, such as determining whether or not a room can go somewhere. And the entire way that works is just, like, it's a switch on the target tile kind, and then a switch on the existing tile kind, and it does rules based on that. We could simplify it even further if we want to just like a couple of if conditionals, but generally speaking, that's what we use. So, as I said, a lot of that is still not fully to a demonstratable state yet. But I am still going to be working on it, because I think having level generator stuff running will really help with picturing what the primary gameplay loop of the game is going to look like. Especially because a big part of what I want the game to be about is actually a little bit of an exploration edge. I made the joke on Blue Sky that, like, oh geez, I'm getting this shit from Dungeons of Dreadmore, aren't I? But it kind of makes sense, and I feel like that's a unique angle / perspective for the game to take regardless. Because it is also still, again, like a real-time game that is a, like, tactical top-down shooter that also has you kind of clearing rooms in kind of a tactical manner. You've got the patrols, you've got key cards, and then you've got secret doors, and then you've got bosses and elite bosses, and the hint system that I want to set up. All sorts of stuff like that is going to kind of link together to make it so that, the combat is probably the focus, but I also really want the movement of the level to be very interesting. And I think that will make it very interesting. So, that's the thing. And I did briefly consider letting it run like it's blueprints, i.e., you come to a door and decide where you want, like, decide on a room layout to place. I was considering that very strongly. I just don't think it would work all that well. And it would be kind of a nightmare because, again, I do still need to kind of make it so that there is an end goal. You gotta get to the elite boss, and there's a lot of other stuff going on there that I don't think it would super work. It might be a thing that I look at for a later, like, custom game mode or different campaign. But for now, we're not doing blueprints. As much as that is an interesting idea, I don't think we're making this like blueprints. Anyways, but what are we working on today? Weapon stuff. I want to work on more weapon stuff. I have been talking about and showing off and wanting to do brick. I want to throw bricks at people. Various reasons. as it stands in general, I do want to be implementing more items and weapons, because having stuff to put into loot pools is also really useful for figuring out how levels are going to flow and how the game's going to play once we have things put together. I do also need to, at some point, get into making interactables and having their prompts actually function. Would be nice. Again, it is, like, functional enough at the moment to where it can be played with, but I do want there to be more of a visual indicator of what is going on with things, especially once I start doing level design stuff and I start implementing locked doors, shielded doors, secret doors, things like that, as well as like the different room types. I want those to be visible. I actually want to make it so that if you walk up to a door and the door isn't shielded, the door will have a little prompt on it that tells you what kind of room is behind the door. It doesn't always say every detail about the room. For example, if you're like walking next to a encounter room, it won't necessarily tell you what kinds of enemies are in there. It'll tell you what level the room is, but it will not tell you what kinds of enemies are in there. Unless it is a boss room, in which it'll say that there's a boss in there, but it won't say which boss. I am still considering if you walk up to the door, it can also have like a little blurb, like one of the enemies inside are talking, and that could like clue you in on at least one of the enemies inside of there. That's a concept that I wanted to do. But it's like up to you to learn what those hints actually mean. That kind of thing. That's the general idea. But I do want to have more guns and stuff to mess around with things. Like, for example, again, we have the new weapon pickup thing. So there's weapons on the ground that have their little particle effects, and we still need to set up different types of particle effects for the different rarities of the guns. That's still a thing that we need to do. And also I still need to do sound design on these guns. Oh, this still works. The enemies we get in here... Reload. Yeah, encounter design is already popping off pretty well. I still have lots of plans for it. Lots of things to do. I do at some point want to implement that stamina system instead of the cooldowns. That'll be eventually. As it stands, I am starting to write quite a few items that interact with the stamina system, so I do want to get the stamina system functional at some point in the near future. As it stands, contraptions will probably be the next thing that I do after I get weapons mostly functional. Contraptions would kind of be the next thing I want to do, and then hop-ups. Hop-ups are, I think, going to be a very important aspect of the game. Excuse me. Hop-ups are going to be an important aspect of the game. It's going to be a very unique thing, because I like the idea of you being able to customize your weapon, and, you know, you stick shit on all sides of gun. Yet you know hit broadest side of barn, but it will help you hit broadest side of barn in this video game. It'll help you do all sorts of things. In sort of a similar way that we would see it in fucking even Deep Rock Galactic. It's obviously going to function way differently from Deep Rock Galactic, but that is definitely like a element of what the game feel is probably going to kind of turn out as a result of those mechanics. Man, why is my stomach already like bleh? Anyways. So, there are a couple of things I need to address in terms of making a brick. I do still need to model the brick, preferably. Let's pop open Blender. We're finally going to make that brick. I did make a mention earlier that the brick is an interesting concept because I do like a manual stylized shading for all of my models, right? But the brick is not always going to be pointed in the same direction, so the shading might look weird as a result. But we can deal with that. For now, I want to say a 30 centimeter long brick would make the most sense. Maybe making it about 40 centimeters, just to kind of exaggerate it a little. So probably like 40 by 20 is probably what I want to do. So now a cube. And go 0.4. Probably want the height of the brick. I think the way that the default character pose of throwing the brick, like classic Gary's mod worldview of a grenade. So it'd be like held up kind of above their head with like their free arm kind of pointing forward, like aiming it type deal. As such, that means that we want it to be thinner in the X direction, actually. Specifically, I think we want this to be probably 12 meters wide. Let's replace each of the sides at 6 centimeters. I did say centimeters earlier, right? I didn't say 12 meters wide. Hopefully. And then 20 centimeters in that direction. That looks like a brick. Maybe I'll go look up a video of somebody throwing a brick to really get an idea of what the ideal throwing angle of a brick is. But in my mind, I think the ideal throwing angle of a brick is this. And yes, that does actually mean that the brick, the brick will be brain fart, please. Doesn't mean the brick will be the projectile as well as the weapon model, which is going to be funny, but I think that's also going to be common for a lot of the throwing weapons. I do want a considerable number of throwing weapons to be in the game. I want like throwing knives, I want grenades, throwing axes I definitely want to put on there. In fact, I probably want to like throw that on the like weapon document real quick. Throwing axes. Just something that I kind of mentioned before when I was talking about trying to do Olivia's abilities, is that like I kept coming up with things where I was just like, this feels more like it should be a throwing weapon, because I was considering throwing weapons to be a archetype in this game. And I was thinking like, oh, you know, her throwing axes in DRG. It was like, like I'd rather that be a throwing weapon. Like Katan's special powder shells gets away with it with having like a weapon, because it is also like a very special type of weapon that is very clearly not meant to function like other weapons. Whereas a throwing axe, I can't really make that function in a way that makes it feel like it's not just a weapon that's a cantrip for you now type deal. That is like the consideration to make. Now, the idea I wanted to go for is I'm going to select all of this. And we're just going to bevel the entire brick. Oh. Thunder? I hope that's thunder and not some asshole hitting the sound barrier again. Probably exaggerate the bevels a little bit, but not too much. That should be pretty good. And I probably won't put holes in the middle. I was considering holes in the middle, but holes in the middle might be more interesting, but it is going to significantly increase the workload of UV mapping and texturing. Especially because that means, I mean, it would be good to bevel the edges of the holes in the middle, but I could probably also get away with not doing that and just texture mapping in fake bevels. That is also a thing that I could be doing with that. I'm gonna do a quick Google real quick. Ah, yes. Reddit explained like I'm 5. What a great result. Make for more even riding and firing. Makes for a stronger break and also reduces weight material. Easier handling can make more less. Rebar use and bonding properties holes are incidental. Rebar use and bonding properties holes are incidental at best. Many breaks have 3 holes in that last bit. House quarters and 3. Oh. I think I do want to do holes in the bricks. Now I know how that works, and that means I know exactly where the holes are being placed in this brick, too. So that means I probably want, 4 centimeter radius, 8 centimeter diameter holes. I'll need to be in object mode, and the fly is returned. Bastard. Getting tired of that. Okay. Do cursor world origin, add mesh cylinder. We do not need that many vertices. In fact, we could probably get away with 6. The radius is, of course, 0.04. Which leaves about 2 centimeters in between each hole. Which I think makes sense. I want this to be rotated 90 degrees on the y-axis for that. Yes. There we go. Yeah, I want it to be upright, like that. I think that'll look the nicest. Which does actually make it so that it's not quite 4 centimeters, but 3.5 centimeters, which actually I would prefer. So that gives a little bit more space in between each of them. Let me go ahead and name this weapon throwing brick. We will duplicate this cylinder. Duplicate it again. Let's move it over there. So those will be the holes that we're drilling into this.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually going to go ahead and join all 3 of these into one object. And then we're going to add modifier Boolean. Select this. Hide it. So that's our result. Now, if we look at wireframe, that looks very bad. We are going to need to fix that. We're gonna go ahead and hit apply on this. But we're really gonna need to fix it. Problem number one. These polygons suck. I don't know why Blender thought that this is how the polygons should look. Because it's bad. Love throwing bricks. Yeah, we're throwing bricks. The plan is to throw some bricks. But this is a simple fix, or at least it should be. Currently, it is at, why? Why is there a why is there a vert there? Blender, why is there a vert there? Why is there a vert there? Boolean cannot be that bad at doing this. Holy shit. I've never seen Boolean be so bad. I've never seen Boolean be so bad at cutting things. Standard from what I hear. Yeah. Yeah. Alright. Yeah, these edges are pretty easy. Excuse me. We just do that. And then the real fucker is going to be joining up the topology with the rest of it. I think an easy start is we probably will go ahead and link these up. Can I... Actually, let me see if I can get this mirrored. We want to mirror across X. Actually, I'm not sure if this will work. If I do that... That did not... Ooh, thunder. That's definitely thunder. Huh. Well then. By the way, please let me know if there are any funky things going on with my microphone. If you hear any weird noises on it, or crackling, do let me know. I would not be surprised if we start getting, like, power issues. And then, as a result, I'm gonna do this the easy way. Power issues that cause my mic amp to bug out, because I think that's happened before. I guess this generate is what we want. We want mirror. I'm gonna clip it. So you want this side, right? Trying to remember what side Blender says is fine. I select that and then go front. That's the side that Blender's fine with. So we take everything here, delete vertices, and we'll just use a mirror modifier because I cannot be arsed. It's not letting me do mirror mode without doing that, so we are just gonna do that. Alright. I think one thing I'm gonna want to do is we do a face here. Face here. Actually do, if we do line mode, we can actually do, or edge mode, we can do that. That's a little bit faster. Trying to make the cleanest topology that doesn't suck ass. Now, the quad that results from this is going to look bad regardless. I think to make the topology the least shit, we're just going to have to do loop cuts. I think what I can do is I can extrude this, fill these edges, and that lets me get these edges. And that makes that topology nice and simple and clean. Is the way that you're making me feel tonight. That's the lyrics that I was looking for. So I'm gonna go in here, absolute grid snap, and snap that to the Z grid so I know what that distance is. Cool. So we can do the same extension on that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a brick. That's looking like a solidly throwable brick. We'll go ahead and apply the mirror. Tab back into edit mode. Wireframe. Select all of these. And we're going to try and dissolve these edges. Hopefully nothing breaks. Awesome! Now I've got a fully completed brick. Look at that. Clean topology. Very clean topology going through it. If I do say so myself. That's not quite what I was hoping for. That's fine. Let's get some UVs on this bitch. This will be simple. Use our loops. We will be marking seams here. Oops. Marking seams here. There will also be seams in the undersides here. The bevels are gonna be— oh, secret protocol, Copy Girl. Thank you very much for the raid. Hang on, do I have— I don't know if I have a mod around for a shout out, so I probably have to do this myself. Thank you very much for the raid. You're also doing software in Gamedev. That's right, I do remember you from, you are a fellow Gamedev streamer. This is actually the first time that you've dropped into my chat, funnily enough. I recognize you, but yeah. First, according to, from way back when I was still being protective, yeah. Feel you on that. Today we're making a low poly brick wall. Oh, sorry. State of Green Protocol. I am Katon. I'm a hobbyist game developer / VTuber. And I am working on a top-down shooter roguelike. It's going to have procedural generation levels, which I'm still kind of working on the back end of that off stream. And I am working on weapons today on stream, because that's a little bit more interesting than me staring at all the cursed math and stuff that I'm doing. Yeah, and Save Your Brickle Coerb 1, thank you very much for following. Welcome to Toaster Figure Brigade. How are you doing? Yeah, making a brick model. We're gonna throw it at people when we're gonna have a jolly old time. I'm trying to decide how I want to do the UVs for this. I think what I will probably end up doing is... Oops. I should probably not be... If I'm selecting all of these edges individually, I shouldn't be using the Pathfind button. So we'll mark all of those. We'll mark the bevels as being part of each of the sides. Difficult day, I managed to get groceries on bike. Ended up finally being in streaming mood for a short stream in the middle of the night. Yeah. Congratulations on getting some streaming done. Yeah, of course, that's the direction it decides to go in. Fine. That's fine. Mark seam. Alright. And then we're gonna make the bottom face of the brick its own section. And then the top face of the brick, it's that section. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a brick UV mapped. Easy fucking peasy. I try and throw in a little bit of extra margin. That does not look like enough margin. There we go. Extract model data from Resonite VR game. Proper rigging information to a GLTF. Interesting. Over here, I've been working on some stuff because we're doing procedural generation, but it is a 3D game. I can actually show off kind of what we've been working on so far, because a lot of things are actually functional already. I just don't have much of the, like, full picture of the core gameplay loop down just yet. And there's still a lot of, like, features that I'm missing that I'm going to need. And I'm trying to make a few more guns that we can fill out some loot pools. But yeah, the idea is about finding guns and then modifying them as well. There's currently a bug with the USB match where it is not pointed correctly, and that's because we've recently made some changes with how weapons are drawn, and the USB has not been updated, and there's still, like, the model needs to be redone. The model seriously needs to be redone, because there's parts of it that are not set up correctly. But yes, it's a top-down game. We've got, like, this little target highlight that I'm really happy with how that came out. I'm trying to abstractify this object, this system, so that I can also have it on interactable items, not just enemies. But it's also useful for showing, like, AI stuff, whereas this is just a target dummy, so it doesn't have an AI, and that's why it has that little error below it. But I can actually right-click, and it will lock on to that enemy. So if I'm... Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I can't... Huh. Dodging actually breaks my lock-on. That makes sense. I might try and set something up to not do that. Maybe. I think actually that might work for the way that I want to design the game, maybe. But yeah, so we can lock on, and then I'll actually keep my crosshair on them as I move around, unless I dash, because I can't aim down sights. I cannot fire whilst dashing. So, that's part of it. But this lets me, this is partially for controller players, but it also is probably pretty useful for PC players as well. Yeah, the idea is that target dummies are going to be like in shops and whatever, so you can kind of figure out what your DPS looks like. But I've actually got a couple of enemies implemented. I'm going to slam into here. These guys are going to fire a assault rifle at me. I'm going to dodge around them. This guy's just a melee enemy. I'm going to kill them with the pistol. And yeah, that's kind of the idea. I've also got abilities running. Let me restart so that we have enemies again. I've got abilities running. So obviously toaster gun. Hang on, let me do the command. Hang on. I am considering that. More specifically, I actually wanted to consider a target tabbing system, as in like when you're already locked onto a enemy, being able to hit a button to switch targets to whoever is like closest to you or further away, stuff like that. Like COH style tab targeting, I am considering that. The idea is that on gamepad, you would the aim down sights thing would be a toggle. So like I would click once and it would lock on controller, whereas on PC it's hold to do that. Yeah, that is a possibility. Definitely be thinking of it. But yeah, so like you've already seen the dash ability. This is a ability. It gives you invulnerability frames. There's actually a perfect dodge system where if you dodge just at the right time, you'll get some rewards for it. Specifically, it's just ultimate charge, which there is an ultimate in this game. If I go ahead and pick up some guns, but the other important thing is actually. So this is Toaster Gun, and it's based off of people in my community. So therefore, the first character is actually Keitan, my Blorbo, but also not exactly my Blorbo, because this is also, at the same time, me. There's going to be Olivia, Shiny Olivia is going to be in it, Amateramusa is going to be in it. Those are the three characters on launch, and then I might be adding Code Kid somewhere in there at some point, so on and so forth. Thundering. Anyways. But yeah, so Keitan has an ability, special... Well, they're actually going to have multiple abilities. The ultimate is per character, but there's going to be the tactical kit is something you can choose at the beginning of a run. This tactical kit is Special Powder Shells. This game is inspired by a previous game that I had made called Toaster Crash, which was kind of just like a extended shitpost and a reference to Katawa Crash, an old Flash game. So one of the things that you can do in there is to use the Special Powder Shells thing from Deep Rock Galactic to boost yourself into the air. Well, it's available in this game as its own ability. So if I face away from this enemy and I press C, I actually jump away from the enemy. It deals damage to them as well. I do get invulnerability during that jump, and also whilst I'm doing that jump, as soon as it's recharged. There's actually going to be a different way that I'm doing abilities in the future, but whilst I'm in the air, I can actually fire down, and when I do that, I get bonus crit rate as well. It is a plus 50% crit rate whilst in the jump. And then, so let's see if we can, there we go. So I actually got that perfect dodge, so I was able to trigger dropping some of the orbs. And the orbs lets me do the ultimate. Boom! I drop down with a big old Kraber kick. That's how that works. I'm very happy with how a lot of that has come out so far. lots of stuff that I've been figuring out as I go along. Sorry for the flashbang. I've been doing lots of documentation for it. This has been a concept ever since like 2023, but I hadn't really started on it until 2025, where I was just, ugh. There's a lot of thunder. Dash seems really long to me. Is there a reason for that? Somewhat by design. Part of it is just the fact that like I'm kind of supposed to be basing it off of like the dash from Mega Man X, but also the fact that like it's supposed to have a certain number of iframes that it lasts for. I might make it shorter. I'll play around with it, especially once I have more characters implemented. Because other characters are actually supposed to have different dodge animations. Like, Amy is going to do a, like, proper tactical dolphin dive for his dodge animation. And then had something else in mind for Olivia. She might just do, like, a, like, Castlevania backdash kind of deal. Potentially. I'll have to figure out what exactly she wants for that. It's probably, I want to lean more towards like Melty Blood. I'm trying to give everybody kind of their own inspiration, game focus, and for example, K-Tom gets a lot from like Mega Man X, but also gets quite a bit from like Street Fighter. And then whereas Olivia is going to pull more from like Melty Blood and things like that, Amy's going to pull more from a combination of Tekken and Call of Duty, actually. Those are the kinds of like themes I want to go with each character. In fact, there is actually a death state implemented already for K-Time, where she does like a Mega Man style little cross explosion with the little particles. Still more I gotta do with it, because I want to actually set up like a mission failed animation similar to Mega Man Zero as part of that, just before the run results screen shows up. I still need to do that kind of stuff. But yeah, we'll see how that works later on. I want to work on getting this brick implemented. For once, I'm actually pretty happy with how Blender decided to auto UV it. But I will do some things real quick to adjust it. Let's turn on sync so that I don't have to do that. So are all of these consistently that? Yes, they are. Although they're out of order, which is fine. I'm going to do individual origins. Control L. I want to do rotate -90, I think will make sense. Place these two next to each other. Place this one here. You gotta make sure, of course, you're gonna have to rotate these so that they're face up. But that seems to have done properly. You also have to triple check real quick to make sure that we don't have flipped normals anywhere. Doesn't look like it. Cool. Okay. That's all pretty much laid out almost exactly the way I wanted it to be laid out. For once, like, Blender almost kinda did this in a way I wanted it to be in. We got the top is here, and then the bottom is here, and the holes are over here. That works out very well. How am I naming the models again? Models, weapons. Weapon, then rarity, type, name. So really, what rarity is brick supposed to be again? What rarity did I say brick is supposed to be? Brick. Uncommon. First uncommon weapon in the game. That's a good sign. I don't think anybody in the first release is going to have throwing proficiency, though. I should probably make sure that the, let me make sure that my GitHub is up to date, and then I probably want to rename those. Oh yeah, I did update this overlay, and then fix that thing that was removed. Minor fixes to for shape here. Looking at those for now. I'm gonna make sure that that was on its own commit. That way I can go through here. I should probably add weapon to each of these materials. Start turtle. I didn't need to delete pistol, I just need to delete. Yeah, see, Katon's is named correctly, except for the fact that it's in the wrong order, I think. We have Legendary Sniper Ellie. So you want starter pistol Katon for each of these, actually. I guess I could also look at my, let me look at my localization chart to make sure that I'm doing it correctly. So I do also have the, like, order of it on here. Yeah, see, it's rarity, type, name in the localization. So I should be standardizing that to everything else. Starter is a rarity, even though it's technically just common. Also, I was playing around with doing, like, inverse hole shaders, or inverse hole outlines, and I've kind of made the executive decision that whilst it would be cool, I was having too many issues with it, with the low poly designs. I see what you're working on. Time for bed. Okay, you have a good night. You get some rest. And last but not least, we gotta fix this. Weapon, starter, I do like how Keitan's starter pistol came out. It's like Ami's starter pistol was basically the first thing I did as an art test for the game. However, starter pistol Keitan obviously got a little bit more love as I'm like figuring out what the art style is going to be for the game, and I really like how this came out. It is a Beretta 93R. It is a burst fire Beretta, basically a burst fire variant of 92 or M9. And it's my favorite pistol, so that's why I had to make it my starter pistol. And then I've obviously given it custom grips. I should have put like a logo on those grips or something. Maybe just like some cat ears. That's kind of the idea for it. Yeah, I like how that came out. And obviously also really like how Ellie came out. That's my L96A1. That's my favorite sniper rifle, my comfort sniper rifle. You will notice it has, it is unlit materials that's just like manually shaded, essentially. So like the texture itself is shaded. And that's kind of the art style of the game. Which is why I'm like looking at how the brick is going to be and just like, wow, the brick's gonna look a little bit weird when it gets thrown. Generally speaking, it's gonna be like held in this position. They're basically gonna be like Gary's mod throwing weapon animation where it's held above the head with like the freehand aiming type deal, which will look good most of the time, but considering the brick is also going to be the projectile. Okay. So I will probably need to blur screen for a second so that I can export this UV layout. Because Blender always wants to go to my default documents folder, which I don't want you guys looking into. So to make sure that I go out to here, underscore UVs. We want all UVs. Fill opacity 1. We might be able to get away with downscaling this to 512. Yeah. We can go 512 on this. And then I just need to launch GIMP. Blah. I have to make sure that I'm launching that in the center window. I don't usually like having to open my start menu in my center screen where you guys can see it. But I kind of have to with GIMP because otherwise it just decides to launch on a different freaking monitor, which is really annoying. Okay. And then let's go over here to where I place this. Bottom here. Weapon uncommon, throwing brick. First things first. Layer transparency threshold alpha to full. Then I have a new thing. Alpha selection. Grow this by... You can keep it at 1 pixel, I think. fill that with white. I probably do still need to go through and make sure weapons weapons have more of a margin around their textures. So do you and put you at low opacity. Sometimes the maps fuck them. For now, we're gonna do this. Sinuses. Being annoying. Alright. Let's pick out some colors. Let me look up a reference of a brick. Again. Kind of an idea of what kind of color I want to do this. Probably won't just directly color match it or eyedropper it. I kind of do want to eyeball it a little bit. You go red. Do want a bit of orange in there. Less saturation. Lower value. Slightly higher saturation, lower value. Yeah, I think generally we want a lower saturation. This is probably a good color for the stylized nature of the video game. Place another splotch here. We then do dodge on that. That should be sufficient. That's a good shadow color. We want some highlights as well. Kind of want something that... There we go, that's what I wanted. Yeah, something that gives it a little bit less saturation. That might be a little too high. Try just turning up exposure. I'm gonna actually do you, and then I'm gonna do like exposure 40. Exposure 27. That's decent. And actually, I'm gonna redo these shadows too. Because I do like how midtones are giving it more saturation. Take a little bit of saturation away. That should fit the overall style we're going for. I think overall what I should be doing is that I should actually be coloring the whole thing and not having a black outline, because as I've said before, I've seen the myth maps really fuck me over if I don't have bilinear or trilinear filtering. As I was complaining about on Blue Sky, I don't know how the fuck Minecraft gets away with having like nearest, what's very clearly nearest filter or nearest sampling on all of its textures, but still have maps that look fine. I don't know how they do that. All right. And the plan is all along here. We fill that with that. And then these sections in fact, what I do is go to this. I need to make sure that I am locking drawing on each of these, so I don't accidentally draw on them. And then I do transparency, intersect the selection, and then grow 5. That works. But then I need to subtract this from it. Then select this lighter color. And fill that in there. I might actually go for the neutral color. I might go for the neutral color here. Oh, exactly. Can't do that because I might undo. Ah, damn it. I think I have to hold control in order to, start this as a deselect. There we go. This will be like that. I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to flip it vertically. Turn the UVs on so I can see placing this right here. Anchored. Boom. Alright. And the fly is back. Damn it. But I'm gonna take this color here. Use my pixel brush here. Just go. This is size 17. A size 16. It's easy for me to remember. Actually, I don't want that color on that side. That's the bottom. Not that to be shaded as bottom. I'll be here. Can overlap a little bit. The treat. I'm gonna use the slightly darker color. Don't quite cover the entire thing with it, or the entire edge with it. So look like that. Then what I'm gonna do is we're going to fake beveling these edges. I think we just want probably just about this size of brush. Thankfully, GIMP is giving us the exact angles we need to be at when I hold control, so that's good. Convenient. Might actually want like a slightly in between mid-tone like this. Go to our swatch, unlock the thing. Relock its painting. Just because I want this to be shaded, but I need a better shade for it. That. And then we want the lighter swatch to then do the other side here. I'm just gonna plaster that shit on. We'll let it kind of right over the lines that we just made. That'll probably look the best. Yeah. And then I'm gonna be lazy and just copy this to the other brick, or the other side. Yep, just like that. Good position, I say. Alright. Nice select. all of this. Let's be the dark shade. I'll just do control comma to fill that. Ugh. My tummy is a little hurty. I'm gonna do like a invert selection so I can kind of center this on here without it getting in the way. And then we select this color. And just drag that straight down. Both sides. Now it's a little too left to the left. So far. Alright, now I just need to do the holes and we will be good. Now, holes are going to be interesting. Excuse me. So, the top and bottom squares on here, quads would be the right term. These definitely going to be this color. And then I think this will be like our plain color. And then I want this to be our like in-between color, which is this. And then this can kind of remain the same color. And I'm just gonna copy that. To each of the other holes. Like that. There we go. And then that's the brick. That finishes the brick. Gimp is probably also going to want to go somewhere weird first. It didn't. I actually went to the Project Wolf folder, which is exactly where I wanted this to be. I want this to be weapon uncommon throwing brick .png. But I also go ahead and save. Oh, then it wants to go here when I save it. Save it as XDF. Go into Blender. First off, we need to change this to emission because we're using, you know, unlit textures. Image texture, open, and of course it wants to go there again. Whatever. Open uncommon throwing brick. And look at that! That looks nice! That looks fantastic if I do say so myself. Again, it's gonna look weird when it, like, you know, lands upside down or whatever. On the floor. But Looks fantastic. That is looking like a mighty brick. Looks like this brick is ready to be thrown at people's faces. For sure. The fun part is that this will not need to be a skinned mesh. We have no bones for this. Which is going to be fun because, technically speaking, the game expects there to be a mesh, or a, like a bone structure. But I think it should function without it. Do you need to save? Where is Blender gonna put the save thing at? Oh, it puts it at the normal place. Cool. Working on common brick.blend. Do some export action. There was a new setup that I had to this. I'm not sure if this fully works. I'm going to select this as selected objects. There's one object selected. That's all we need. It's gonna be the easiest export of my life. Hopefully it'll be the easiest import of my life. We're gonna need a folder for it though. Grab you, and you. And we drop that in. Do bake axis conversion. There we go, that fixes it. Hopefully, at least. We'll need to extract materials. At some point, I'm going to need to do a material shader for all of the weapons, because there's various effects I want to have applied to them. But for now, it's just going to be a generic universal render pipeline unlit. Base maps that. And there's our brick. Fantastic. So that means the first thing that we're going to need to do, I need to right-click this. We're going to do create prefab variant. And then we create weapon model underscore uncommon burning brick. For now, we're going to take that to prefab's weapons in the base folder. but we will need to create a new folder for throwing. Now we got this object. Hey, you know what? We can't do the object like this, actually. We kinda can't. We're actually gonna need to get rid of this variant. Because this isn't a skinned mesh renderer, because it is its own root, I'm actually going to need to, like, create a empty prefab. Which, of course, I don't think I can from the create menu here. Oh wait, prefab? There we go, okay. Weapon, model, underscore, uncommon, throwing, brick. You open that shit, fly is back. Put that up here. The reason we've got to do this is because of the fact that it's, I can't just move the root out of the object to move it around, whilst having it still behave the way that the rest of the game assumes it's going to. So we gotta have this here. Alright, and then we do... weapon display handler is the first component. I need to come into here so I can see all the things that normally get added. We have the weapon display handler, which is just this. Okay. Does not have droppable magazines. I technically might need to set it up with... I might just have it handle with the eject casing system handle placing bricks on the ground whenever they hit. Zero reserved magazines. We do not have any magazines. This is not a gun, this is a brick. I need to go to the bathroom. I'm gonna BRB. So I'm gonna run some ads. Everybody take a stretch break. And I'm gonna do the fly attack. Nice again. Okay. Stand by. Everybody take a bit of a stretch break. Yeah. Sorry for the long delay. I had to grab myself a little snack to hopefully have my stomach be less angry at me. Alright, let's get on with this. So, going to be selecting main weapon renderer. I've been setting the inform rotation to like 30, right? I haven't. Interesting. Okay, I'll keep that in mind then. I haven't been rotating the bricks at all. I guess that makes sense because I've been like, the plan is also to use the item form rotation for the upgrade animations. Bastard, come on. Sick of dealing with this fly. I don't usually get just a one extremely persistent fly throughout the entire stream. I just get like a fly that bothers me for part of a stream, but not this persistent. Anyways, none of this. A lot of this is not going to be set. You can set the main weapon route. The funny thing about main muzzle point is it'll go on this. There's no magazine bones. We do need a weapon info. We don't need a spare magazine prefab. We don't have weapon animators implemented just yet. Even though bricks are going to be very easy to animate. It'll be, hey, did we just throw this brick? If so, then disable the renderer. If we've got a new brick, then don't disable the renderer. Alright, so we go to data, infos, weapons. Let's give this a weapon info. We have to first go folder, throwable. And then we create infos, weapon info. Eventually I'm going to make these a lot easier to deal with. Actually, it shouldn't be throwables, it should be throwing. It's throwing in prefabs. It's throwing in models, so yeah. Okay. Unfortunately, right-clicking that will override everything, but I can. Should be able to pop this out, right? That. So what we'll do is it open? No, it's not open. It's properties. That's what I'm looking for. If you open this as a separate window, and that way I can there's a way for me to do, like... Oh, there we go. Alright, good, this, that we have reference to equipable... Wait, display handler, that's it. This is deprecated. So it should be deprecated correctly, hopefully. We are going to need an inventory sprite for it for the moment. And actually, I think for the moment, I'm going to choose, like, the USPs for now. I'll need to set that up later. Alright. We need localization for it. So let's get some localization going for it. We need a new page. The information, weapon names, name will be uncommon throwing brick. It is brick. That's it. Let me add another one. This is still information, right? Yeah. Weapon flavor texts. Celebrate history. Period. Oh yeah, that's right. We also need uncommon throwing brick flavor. There we go. Do I have effect text for the brick? Where's brick at? Brick. I was deciding on a special effect for a brick. I think I do still want a special effect on brick. I just don't know what it's going to be. Might involve like an on-stagger bonus of some sort, probably. All right. Excuse me. So now we go export, markdown CSV, current view everything. Actually, blur screen, so I don't know where that's going. Yeah, that goes to my downloads. I don't want to show that off. Actually, no, I think I usually put downloads and I think about it. Yeah, I do toaster gun localization. Replace that. Unity should be localization updater. Update from file. Downloads. Toaster gun localization. I do need some better like feedback on when that fixes itself, but we should now see. Yes. Uncommon throwing brick weapon name. It's no, it's not unknown, it's uncommon. That doesn't mean you need to select that. This is technically deprecated, this enum. So I wanted to have more configurable rarities. Currently, mastery tags does not work the way I want it to, but eventually I'm going to update it to work the proper way. What is the bonus it's supposed to have? It is a thrown weapon. So, agility, intelligence. Allegedly. Which I think is, yeah. Agility, intelligence. Agility, intelligence. Base damage profiles. 1300, fire rate 1, reload 1.4. Is 1300 lethal. Displayed rate of fire 1. Reload time 1.4. I haven't added sprint fire times to these. Should probably have those on there. Base ammo capacity 1. Actually, I have base crit rate 2 on it. And bonus 15. Oh, I have these backwards. Hang on. I have these way backwards. That makes slightly more sense. So I want to say, why is the slopper up here? But I realized, I think that's because, yeah, crit values shown on page are effective values after adding 5 hop-ups. Actual base value, 2%, yeah. That's why that has such a high DPS. It's represented in its top form. I think the brick being 1068 is functional enough. Let me make sure that yeah, okay, that's still calculating that correctly because it knows that it's a single fire weapon. Okay. In that case, I did want it to be a 2 base crit damage bonus, a 15 base crit chance. Reload time 1.4, draw time 0.3 is fine for now. I have to kind of standardize what those numbers are supposed to be. Alright. We get a base DPS of 1068, just like I see it on the thing. Now I just need to make the weapon refab for it. Why did I get brought back here? Which actually is, so I believe... Let's take a look at how these have been handling itself. That's about what I'm expecting for that. Alright. Create. Prefab. Weapon. Uncommon. Throwing. Brick. So you open this up. You attach the weapon model to it. And then we're going to give it equipable weapon first. And then we also give it weapon behavior generic ballistic. But we are going to need to create a new projectile for it. Select our weapon info, the uncommon throwing brick. Let's look at set by itself. to make sure muzzle and display on holster should be deprecated, right? Keyword should. Disable on holster is deprecated. It has 0 references. It's good. Muzzle is actually not deprecated because, again, we actually have... when we assign a weapon handler to it, we actually change the muzzle with that. So that's good. So save that, and that way it's gotten rid of, and don't have to worry about that. We do still need to set the display handler. That way we know to replace this. I need a fire sound for you. Thankfully, I should have one somewhere in my files. Go to weapons, fire. Let's go find ourselves. Actually, I'll go ahead and do like a new folder. I call this throw. Just to kind of have it make more sense to me. Alright, so I'm gonna need resources. I need to pull up my VLC. I'm gonna turn the volume on VLC down a little bit so you guys don't get jump scared by any of these sounds. I need a good throwing sound. I'll go look through my running sound stuff. My sinuses are still being annoying. It's gonna go. It must be the weather doing this to me. Like, it has to be the weather doing this to me. It might actually be in sounds. Yeah, okay, I have to use swing sounds in here. On something a little bit meatier. That's terrible. Oh, Sacred Recall, Diesel. How are you doing? Keep up with work myself. I can show you what I'm getting to later. Okay. It's going decent. It's going decent. We're mostly modeling and designing. Actually, we've made a brick. We're gonna be throwing this. We throw this at people. We're gonna throw this at people soon-ish. I am
Tactical repositioning requested.
Yeah, check posture. I feel like I should have like a very low swing in here somewhere. Ah, low pitch swing. Yeah, hey, that's kind of what I was looking for.
Reminder to maintain hydration levels.
Thank you for
Head
one
pats
for
incoming.
head pat. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I do. I have been feeling kind of crappy. I think it's the weather. I'm hoping it's just the weather fucking with me. Like, my sinuses are just on fire, and also my tummy kind of hurts. But we persevere because I want to throw a brick at people. I have an audio random container. Pro weapon heavy. So throw in a low pitch swing here. I think the low pitch swing is in and of itself already at a decent volume. So you mostly just want a bit of randomization on the pitch. Start going up and down a bit. Try going down a bit more. That's good, I'd say. Alright. Come in here. And that's our default fire sound. Easy peasy. We will actually uncheck should fire tick delay reload. Because this is a weapon that will immediately start reloading as soon as we fire. In fact, something I am going to need to figure out is that currently weapons don't automatically reload when they run out of ammo, and I kind of need to set that up. I kind of need to make them actually do that. Fire mode semi is fine. I'm not sure if trigger buffer ratio 1 is okay, but also I'm not sure if it does anything because we don't have fire delay ticks. So we'll set 0.1 just in case, because in theory we could theoretically have a quote-unquote glitched weapon because of a cool little randomizer mechanic that I want to be setting into the main game eventually. And that might potentially give you a brick that has 2 in the chamber for some reason that lets you throw 2 bricks slightly faster. Okay, but we need, first of all, we need a new projectile for this. In theory, we could still use projectile ballistics, but we will need some different renderers for it. For bricks can still use projectile ballistics, but I think if we do like other throwing weapons like grenades will need we might have it so that grenades start out as ballistic projectiles, and then the moment they make contact with anything, they'll then turn into a Unity rigid body and then just be physics active, which isn't always great because that's less what's the word I'm looking for? Deterministic. It's less deterministic of behavior. Physics is always like that. But it's the only system that kind of makes sense when it's going to be like a throwing weapon that doesn't immediately become a debris object as soon as it hits something. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. Projectile player. And I'm going to go ahead and call this brick. I feel like I could at some point set something up such that we have like a throwable. In fact, actually, I'm gonna call this projectile player throwable ballistic. And then from there, I might actually set it up such that we can tell it to we can tell it to attach a weapon display object to it. And honestly, sure. So you go into the effects handle, and we're going to change this trail. Changing it to like a gray color. Slightly lower alpha to start. Just like that. And then we're going to give it we should delete that. Hang on, I gotta turn magnet off. There we go. So, throwable ballistics objects will have that kind of trail to it. We can also increase the time a little bit since the throwables are going to be a little bit slower. I like that. You know what? I might actually have... I don't think I can do that, actually. Some flies back. Why is my sinuses doing this? We do want a slightly larger bullet size. Brick itself is like 0.4, so we can use that. But I'll probably kind of round it to 3.3 is the more standard thing. Bump gravity up to 9, slightly closer to realistic gravity, but not too close. Excuse me. I'm going to go ahead and make a new component for this. I guess it would be in projectiles. And create a behavior script called projectile spin. It's actually called throwing spin. technically speaking, it's working on throwable ballistic. It'd be nice to be able to use this for... Like, we do, prefab variants. I would prefer to be able to kind of quickly set it up such that it uses, the weapon model. But maybe not. Anyways, I want to move this to namespace, toaster gun. Go with serialized private fields for this. I kind of do want to set something up such that this could be customized by the weapon, but... Vector 3... Spin axis. By default, let's go with... Actually do vector 3 dot right. We'll also have a private float spin speed. Let's go with... Let's be like degrees per second. So let's go with... I could also do this in RPM. Kind of want to do it in RPM instead. Granted, it's rotations per minute, and we probably want to go from rotations per second, but that's fine. We can actually just do, like, whatever we want in rotations per second, so probably 3, right? Then we should do times 60. And that gives us rotations per minute. So I kind of do want to go back to our brick weapon. Specifically to the weapon model. I figure out how I want to drop this on the floor. Because casing is a concept, however, something we can do for casing is that almost every casing in the game will probably get away with just running a capsule collider. And then we can just, like, configure them to configure the capsule collider on spawn, depending on the weapon type and info. Why are my sinuses doing this? Might need to be kind of taking a break at some point. Actually, interesting weapon. I didn't set the weapon info for brick. Let's get that set. The problem is that the brick shouldn't be doing that. The question is, I feel like using the brick's dropped magazines for the projectiles would make sense. However, the system is currently set up to only support 3 dropped magazines at a time. I feel like you'd be throwing a lot more than 3 bricks at a time in an encounter. And for that, you know what we could do? I will have a spare magazine prefab for brick, but it won't make a pool. Instead, I'll have another function in weapon display handler that lets us just instantiate the prefab without pooling it. The idea is that, like, spare magazine is supposed to be part of an object pool system for, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? For whatever. The thing is that projectiles should be pooled, but I don't have a good way of doing pooled projectiles yet because of the fact that most of them are different. But for now, that'll probably be the best way of doing it. We'll do things in a jank way for now. Return your mesh renderer off. We want you to be on layer physics debris. And then we add a rigid body that starts as kinematic. Let's turn the mesh renderer back on so that hopefully when we add the box collider, it sets it to the proper dimensions. Perfect, perfect. I hate that my sinuses are doing this today. How heavy is a brick? Two to 3 kilograms. I want to say Unity does mass in kilograms. We'll go with 2 kilograms. We have the holes in it, so it should be on the lower end. Why is my sinuses doing this? I hope I'm not getting sick. I really hope it's just allergies. Alright, and then I add weapon spare magazine to it. How many weapon is this? Magazine renderer is you. Disable that. And then we can set that here. Alright. I'm gonna go to weapon display handler. I'll probably be throwing some comments in here saying to do this in a better way that lets us do object pooling, preferably. And that is to do the following. Excuse me. Just kind of want to check. So in that case, that means that we do still need a reserved magazine size of 1 on this, so that it at least creates the array saying that we have a spare magazine. And something I'm probably going to want to do is I want to set a variable to actually have it be here. We're going to make it a Boolean. Is temporary false. I might not get around to actually throwing the brick, and I'm going to need to, like, hop off to go be sick or whatever the hell's wrong with my body today. Oh, I hit the wrong button. I was trying to hit my skip button and hit the radio button instead. Actually, I don't need a tooltip. This isn't shown in the editor. I just need the summary. Currently used for throwing weapons, as I do not currently have a good solution for object pooling their projectile displays. All right. So we're going to do this is that we are going to run place in hand, but we're going to target the projectile. Specifically, we'll be targeting the projectile's thing that tells us to target it, which will be whatever is the projectile throwing spin transform. And then we'll also drop it at that position. But what we need is... we actually do need a method, which is going to be called public void. She might be able to do static weapon spare magazine, make temporary instance. Yeah, all the fields that I need should be serialized. The is temporary flag set. It does not return to the own weapons magazine pool. The way we do this is actually we're also going to need well, we'll instantiate it to the owning magazine or owning weapon. Ugh. Probably I'm gonna need to end stream early just because of how gross my sinuses feel right now. do instantiate. Spare magazine. Actually, you do spare magazine prefab. Let's make sure that makes more sense. Work is temporary is true. I do also want to set the transform parent to Yawning weapons transform. Doesn't have the other thing handle that. So make the temporary instance, and then we'll do place in hand on it. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to call it there. Unfortunately, I am not feeling great. Oh, hang on. Ugh. I don't think the brick's gonna get thrown on stream, unfortunately. If I do manage to throw it off stream, I will definitely take a video and show it off on the blue skies. I'm gonna flip over to my chatting scene, start wrapping things up because I am not feeling good. But y'all know the drill. You do the plugs, so you guys know. I think my blue sky should be in there. Yes. So if I do stuff, I will post it to blue sky. Probably. Blech. Alright. So with that being said, I'm gonna be pushing out of here pretty quickly, I think. Schedule coming up is that I'm going to do some sort of gaming on Thursday, possibly Deep Rock Galactic, but we'll have to see. Saturday we do more Catgirl Craft, the Minecraft modded SMP. And then Sunday, Olivia and I are starting Ratchet and Clank 3 Up Your Arsenal. I'm very excited for that. So that's the stuff ahead of us. I'm going to do default raid messages in case anybody is around. But it's fine, nobody is. See if we can drop in on somebody. I'm just gonna drop in on somebody comfy, hopefully. And honestly, if I don't see anybody comfy, I am just gonna say fuck it. Click off the stream. Should probably change the sort. Yeah, I'm not liking any of my options today. I think I may just hop off for the night. Go blow my nose for 5 bajillion million trillion years. And see if I can't put something in my stomach that doesn't make me sick. Because I think I am gonna go ahead and end things here. I don't think I have the energy to raid. So, with that being said, ladies, gentlemen, everything between. Thank you very much for tuning into my stream. I hope to see you guys next time I'm on. Till then, this is Katon, over and out.